Hello. So for database today, what I'm thinking I'd like to do is go over the archiving features of the project. So far we've pretty much gone over every part of the project. We've talked about the forms, we've talked about the reports, we've talked about the switchboard forms, we've talked about macros, and we've also gone over a little bit of VBA programming. So the archive feature is something that is mentioned and is important in the project. So let's open up the document here. I'm just going to download it. Okay. So maybe I should just do a search here for archive. All right. So from the main menu that you come to as soon as you've logged in, one of the options that you should have is the ability to perform an archive. And it explains it right here, performing archiving capabilities for employee data. So if an employee is terminated, then all the information related to that employee, it should be appended. So we're going to use an append query to an archive table. That will store that information for safekeeping. And in addition, we should remove that data from our active tables. So there's really two parts to this. We look through, when we do this archive, we look through and see, do we have any employees that have been terminated? And if we do an append query with all of their data, and then we do a series of delete queries where we're going to remove their data from the database. Okay, so let's just scroll down a little bit further, and it also, I think, shows us maybe an image here of what it should look like. Okay, this is on the employee information. You can see there's a button here, Archive Old Records. But that's a little bit different. The actual description says that can be on the main switchboard that you first come to. So that's what we're going to go over today. So it's a pretty simple process, really. But you just have to add a table. Then you have to add a bunch of queries that you can run. And then when someone hits the archive button, you're then going to run those queries. And that's pretty much all there is for it. So this should be a pretty simple procedure. It is a little bit tedious because there are quite a bit of data that we have to go through. So let's go through and maybe try doing an example here. So I've got a project sample open right now. And so this has data similar to what you guys would have. I have a bunch of tables here that have some information about employees. So I have a position, I have an employee table, I have employee position, that's a bridge table between employees and position. I also have different departments, and I have this dates table as well. Now I think a lot of you have the exact same table except you don't have the dates table, and that's actually probably better. This example here happens to have this dates table, but these are just important dates related to an employee. There's no reason to have that separated out. So that the information in dates, if I open it up in design view, this has things like the date of birth, the date hired, the probation date, and the terminated date. That could easily just be added into the employee table. There's no reason to separate that out. Okay, so you can see here we have important information about an employee. And if I look at positions, this is just going to give me information about different positions in the company. And then employee position is a bridge table, which gives me an employee number and also has a position number as well. All right, so for the archive, to make this work, we first need to create a new table. I'm just going to go back and look at my switchboard here. So this is my basic design for my main form. And you notice I have a button here that says Employee Archive. So when that button is pressed, that's when I want to perform the archive. And if I look at my employees, you'll notice there is a terminated option. So if I select an employee as terminated and then save this table, once I've done that, now if I go and press the Employee Archive, this employee and every information, all the information from the employee table, from the employee position table, as well as from the dates table, that should be removed and placed inside the Employee Archive table, which I'm about to make. All right, so I'll just leave that. I don't want to actually have an employee terminated until I go to do it. All right, so first step is we're going to go and create a new table. So I'm going to go into create a new table here. And basically I'm going to run through a bunch of different fields that I'm going to need. Now this part is a little bit tedious because there is quite a bit of data that I'm going to have to add here. So the first one I will add is going to be my employee number. Okay, let's just try that again. So I'm going to go to create, and I'm going to go create a new table. I'm going to save this table as employee archive. Okay. Okay, I see. I want this in design view. Okay. So the first field I'm going to have is going to be employee number. So I'm going to go EH underscore employee number. And I will have this as a number. So the important thing here as well is I have to make sure that each of these data types match what's in the original table. So I could go, for example, and open up my employee table, and I should have that in design view. And I can see, for example, that employee number is a number, and then the other fields, of course, are short text. And I'm gonna have to add all of these in essentially. I wonder if there's a way I can copy these. Oh, nice, nice. Okay, so that's great. Now the only thing I need to do is I'm going to prefix this EH instead of EMP because this is the employee, well, actually it should be EA, employee archive. All right, so I'm just gonna fix this up and then we'll move to our other tables as well. Now, as we do this, we do need to decide if all of these fields are appropriate. So for example, in an archive table, having the employment status makes no sense because the person doesn't work there anymore. So I can delete this one. And employee terminated, that doesn't make sense either. So I can delete that. So let's go look now at employee position. And what we see here is we have employee number, we have position number, we have department number, salary. So pretty much everything here looks good. We don't need this employee position ID that's a primary key. And we don't need employee number because we already have that from the employee table. So I'm gonna go ahead and select these. I'm holding down Shift while I'm selecting that, and then I can right click and copy. And I'm gonna go into my employee archive table again, and I will now paste this in. Okay, and I'm gonna once again change the prefix to EA underscore. Okay, so this looks good. Let's look at the dates table now. So open that in design view. We have an employee number, so we don't need that. We have date of birth, date hired, probation end, and date termination. So I will copy these four. And I'll go back to my employee archive, and I'm gonna paste that in here. Oops, let's try that again. Okay. And go back and paste. Okay, so once again, I will just add this prefix. Okay, that looks good. So because I copied everything over, I can now go and basically, I have confidence that the fields are gonna match. Now, one thing that's weird here, EA probation end is a calculated field. I probably want to change that to date time, okay? The reason it's calculated is because whatever you enter for the hired date, it uses a calculation to say the probation end date is, I don't know, 9 weeks or 10 weeks later. But it should be stored as a date. Okay, so I'm gonna save that. Uh-oh. All right, so there was an issue there with the probation end period. So I just deleted it and it now saves properly. And I'm just gonna go enter this in manually. So EA probation end date. And this is gonna be date time as the type. All right, so I think I've added pretty much everything here. I've got the different dates, I've got the different position information, and then basic employee information. So this will be where I'll want to store all my information, so I can make sure I've saved everything. And now the next step I need to take is to create a query that is going to grab the information from the tables when I want to archive it. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna go back to create, and I'm gonna go into my query design. And I know that the tables I want to use is gonna be from dates, from employee, and from employee position. And also from position. No, those are right. Dates, employees, employee position. Okay, and this is gonna be a append query, so I can go and select that, and now it's asking me which table I want to append to. I want to append to the employee archive, so I select OK. And now I should save this as query append to archive. All right, so now I can basically go through and I need to now specify all the fields, and I need to specify a criteria to make this work. So I can go in here and basically I'm gonna go one by one. So the first field I want is gonna be employee number, and I'm going to append this to EA employee number. Right, so this is a little bit tedious to go through. I mean, there's like 15 or 16 of these fields I gotta do. So next one is going to be employee first name. So I'm going to go employee, it's not quite wide enough, but I think that's first name. And I'm going to go into my archive for first name. Then we'll do last name, and we'll append that to the last name. After that, we're going to do the address. And I'm going to append that to the address in the archive table. Next, I believe, is I missed phone number, so I got to do that one. And I'll append that to the phone number. After that is the postal code. Oops. Okay, so let's take care of that. And after that is marital status. And here we go, let's find that. There we go, that matches. And after that is gender. Okay, and then let's see, what do we have after that? We have date of birth. So dates, date of birth, and I append that to my date of birth there. So running off the end of the screen here, I'll just scroll over a bit. After date of birth, we have, I guess we have some other dates. So we have our permanent hire date, and that's gonna go under hired. And we also have the probation end date. Okay. And the last date we have is our termination date. Okay, we got that. And now we have to deal with the employee position information. So we're gonna have a position number that we need to store. So employee position, I'm just gonna make this a little bit wider. So employee position, no, that's not helping. Okay, even wider. Employee position, so the first one's gonna be the position number. Okay, we got position number, and we can find our okay, it looks like I don't see a position start date. I don't have a position number. So I'm gonna have to go back and add this. So I need to add information from the position or employee position table. maybe I have it. Let's see here. I have a department. Oh, I do have it. Sorry, I do have it. EA position number. Okay, that's good. And we'll scroll over a little bit more. So next up, I'm going to grab the department number. Okay. Next up, I'm going to grab the salary. We're almost done here, and then we also have the start date and end date for each of the individual positions. So the whole idea here is one employee may have had several positions at the company, and they all need to be archived. And each individual position will have a start date and end date, a salary, a department number, a position number, etc. So, okay, so we have the salary, and next up I'm going to now do the employee start date and then end date. All right, so I basically was fighting with Access for a little bit there. So I guess I need to hit this insert columns button. And there, I can start adding a few more columns in. Let me just paste this over here though. Okay, so next up is the end date. Okay, there we go, and I need to select the end date there. Okay, so I think that's all of my, my columns, so I guess I need to delete this last one here. All right, so we have the query all set up. So at this point, we can go ahead and test it. I'm just gonna close this right now, and if I open up my employee archive table, there's no one's been archived at this point, okay? So now, if I take this query, and I run it, so it's going to give me a bunch of warnings. Yes, I want to, so it's going to add 4 rows. And now if I go into my employee archive table, I have 4 employees here. Now, the only issue, and this worked properly, we have all the data in there, but the only issue is we need a condition because we don't want to put employees automatically into the archive. We only want to do that if they have been terminated. So let's make a few changes here. I'm just going to delete all of these records. Okay. So I've cleared out my employee archive table. And now we can go back to the query and we need to update it by adding in some criteria. So if I look at let's look at my employee table. One of the fields is employee terminated. So I only want to archive an employee if they have in fact been terminated. So in my criteria, I'm going to say that I want employees dot terminated has to be yes, okay? So only if they've been terminated do I want to do this. So I'm now going to save this query and I'll close these tables. And now let's try running this query again. So I'm going to double click it and it's going to run it, but this time it didn't add anyone. And when I open up my archive, it's the same. And that's the correct result because right now in my employee table, if I open up the data, nobody is actually terminated. So let's go terminate Ben Holiday, okay? So we've terminated this person. Now, keep in mind, when we terminate them, we also have to add a date when they've been terminated. Okay, no. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so terminated as of the 6th of April. So now I'll save this. I'll save the dates, I'll save the employees. And now I'm going to run my append to archive. So this time, it's now going to append one row to my archive table. So I will select yes, and now if I open up my employee archive, there we go. Ben has now been added to that table. But we know that there's still more work to be done, because if I go to my employees table, Ben is still there. And if we look at Ben's employee number 1004, if I go to my employee position, I also see information about Ben here. And if I go to my employee dates, I also see information about Ben. So those three tables need to also have a delete query where they remove any terminated employees from the table. Okay, so let's do that then. That's the next step really. I have to create these delete queries. So let me just close these out. And from my employee archive, I'm also going to just delete this because we'll want to run it again. So now I have an empty employee archive. And the next query I'm going to do, I'm going to make a delete query. So I'm going to go to, let's see here, query design. And the table I want will be the dates table. And I'm going to change this into a delete query. Okay. So I'm going to delete everything in dates. And my criteria is going to be, I'm going to delete when employees dot, actually I'm going to need another table as well. So I'm also going to need to have the employee table. Okay. And I'm going to delete everything from dates, and only where employees dot terminated is yes. Okay. So I think that's correct. I'm going to save this as query delete dates, and we should be able to test this out. So basically, if I'll close this query, if I open up right now my dates table, I notice I have employee 1004. That corresponds to the employee I just terminated. So I'll close that out, and now let's try running my delete dates. It gives me a warning. I'm about to delete one row. So I don't know if I really want to do this because it's going to mess stuff up, but I do want to prove that this is working, so I'll just go for it. So there we go. Now if I open up dates, that employee is now gone, okay, which is the result that I was looking for. So unfortunately, I don't know if I can undo that. I don't think I can. So I messed up my database. That's okay, because I still have 3 more employees that I can demonstrate this on after. So I'll close that out. Let's do our next query. So I will now go back to create, and I'm going to create oh no, I don't want the wizard. I want the query design. And in this one, I want to delete from employee positions. So I'm going to select employee position, and I'm going to select employees. So from employee position, I want to delete everything. And I want to do that where employee.terminated is going to be yes. Oh, and I forgot to turn this into a delete query as well. There we go. Okay, so I'm deleting everything from employee position where the employee was terminated. So I will save this as query delete employee position, and I'll select OK. And let's see here. So we've got that done. So now I can close this, and I'm going to go ahead and I want to test this out. So if I open up my employee position table, I notice I have 1004, the employee I terminated, Ben. So I'm going to close that, and now I'm going to run the delete query here. So it gives me a warning. It's going to delete one row. I say yes. And now if I go back in, that employee is now gone. So I'm doing really well here. So the last thing I need to do now is delete them from the employee table. So one more delete query. I'm going to go create, and I'm going to go into query design. And in this case, I just want the employee table, and I'm going to change this to being a delete query, and I'm going to delete everything from employees. And the criteria is going to be employees dot terminated equals yes. And I will save this as query delete employee. Uh-oh. Okay, let's just see what I have wrong here. So I have employees. So I'm deleting everything from employees. Okay, all right, so I made a mistake. So I can definitely do that. I want to delete everything from employees, but I need to specify another column to say that this is the one that goes with. So I basically have to say the employee terminated is yes. Okay, and now when I save it, it will save. All right, so I'm going to close that, and once again, I want to test this out. So if I go into my employee table, I can see that employee 1004 is still there. I'm going to close that, and now I'm going to run my delete employee position. All right, so it looks like I had a bit of a mix-up with the employee position table. So I've removed it from the tables that I'm referencing, and I'm deleting now everything from the employee table. And I'm also deleting where employee terminated is equal to yes. So I will save this, I'll close it, and now I'm going to run this query, and it's now going to delete one row. I click yes. Now when I go into my employee table, I can see right away that that individual has been now removed. Okay. All right. So we've got the queries ready, and we've created our archive table. So there's really two more steps we can do. We can set up a macro that will run those queries when we do our archive, or we can use VBA that will run those queries when we do our archive. So I think what I'll do today is I'll show you how to do this using a macro. That's probably the quickest way to do it. Doing VBA is just as easy though, and it's very... Okay, so we're gonna go add our macro now. So we select the button, and we go over and we go into our macro builder. All right, and we go to open query. And the first query we want to do, first we want to append, and then we want to do our deletions. So we append to archive. Okay, and then we're going to do 3 more. So I'm going to go now and do a couple more open query. And this next one I'll delete from the dates table. And then I will do another delete one. So this time I'm going to delete the, let's say the employee position. And then the last one, I will delete the employee. Okay. And I have a feeling that you should delete the employee last, because that's the table where the terminated flag is. So if you delete that first, I don't think the other deletions will work correctly. All right, so we've done this. We've got our 4 deletions here. So I'm going to save that and close. And now we can try running this. Now, first off, I'll just try running it, make sure I don't get any errors. It's not going to actually delete anyone, because I need to go and actually terminate an employee. So I will go into my form view, and I will hit employee archive. So I get a bunch of warnings now. The first one, do I want to append data? I say yes. I'm going to append 0 rows. Now I'm going to do a delete query. It's going to delete 0 rows. I'm going to get that 3 times. Okay. Now these warnings, when you're debugging and building your database, they're good to have these warnings on. But when you go to submit your database, you can set those warnings so that they don't show up. So there's actually macro commands that will turn the warnings off. Then you can execute a bunch of queries and then you can turn them back on again after. And I'll leave that to you to look that information up, how to do that. So now let's go and actually terminate an employee. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to terminate this employee here. Linda Loom is now terminated. Okay, so I'll save that and I will close the employees. So now let's go and see if we can archive this employee. Okay, so this is good news. It's going to append 1 row to my archive. That's good. And now it's going to run a delete. It's going to delete 1 row. It's going to delete another row. Oh no, it's going to delete 0 rows. So it didn't quite work. That's not good. So if I go and open up my tables now, okay, so employees, Linda is not there. That's good. When I go employee position, so right here, unfortunately, her data didn't get deleted from this table. And in employee archive, her data is there, which is good. And in the dates table, her information has been deleted there. So why that happened? I guess we'd have to look at these queries here. So from employee position, okay. Okay, so I see the problem I have is that I made a mistake with my employee position table. So let's fix that. The employee table works properly and it deletes from employees, but employee position is not deleting properly. So let me close this out. Let's go into employee position. So I need to add another table. And I'm going to add employee position. Okay. So I'm going to now delete everything from the employee position table, not the employee table. Okay. And I want to do that where the employee terminated is yes. So I need to make sure that it's going to select the correct one. Okay, so that's why I have the employee table there. So there's obviously there's a connection, a relationship between the two tables, that the employee number is a primary key and it's a foreign key in the employee position. So as long as I only delete employees who have an employee terminated as yes, that should delete those employee positions. So I will now save this and we can now test this out again. So unfortunately, we do have to clean up our database. So if I go into my employee positions, I now need to delete this row because it wasn't deleted properly before. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now let's try terminating someone else. So I'm going to terminate Jamie Jacobs. You are terminated. Okay, so they are terminated and I'm going to close that table. I'm going to close all these tables here. All right, so I should now be able to go and run this and this better work. If it doesn't work, we have one more chance. There's one more employee there. Okay, so it appends a row. It deletes one, deletes one, deletes one. Okay, there we go. I don't know how I do it, but there we go, success. Okay, so I can go double check that. I can go and look at my employee table and I can see there's only one person left. Jamie has now been removed. I can look in employee position, there's only one employee there, and I can look in dates and there's only one employee there. Now when I go to the employee archive, this employee has been added as well, all right? So I've shown you guys the overall concept of what you do with the archive. I've gone through the steps of creating a table and then creating a append and delete queries that will handle this operation. And then we've added a macro that will go through and run these. Now that I've tested it and it works, I could go back into my macro and turn off the warnings. Now you do have to be careful when you run macros or commands that turn off warnings, because you need to make sure you turn them back on after you're done running your commands. If you forget to turn them back on, then you might go do some more development work. You'll make a mistake, but you won't get any pop-ups or warnings indicating there's an issue. So there's that to work on, and then the other option available is to use VBA to run the append and delete queries. But I've spent too much time in this video, so I'm gonna just leave that. If you want to go and use VBA, it's a fairly easy process to do that. You can look up how to run some queries using VBA, no problem, and you'd be able to use VBA instead of macros if that's what you want. So anyway, I'm gonna stop the video here. If you guys have any questions, make sure you send me emails. And if you need to, you can send me your database. I can take a look, see what you're getting stuck on, and try to help you out. Okay, have a great day. I'll talk to you guys later.